Yo, what's up, guys? The Insane Game Freak here. The PlayStation Pro comes out in like a week or two, so I figured it was about time we talked about it, right, guys? Right, let's fucking talk about the PlayStation Pro. So, and I'm going to talk about the PlayStation Pro and more so in terms of gaming this generation, just using the Pro as kind of a jump off point. So, the PlayStation Pro comes out in like 2 weeks, alright? It's actually less than that, but I'm going to just say 2 weeks. Um, and obviously there's been a pretty mixed reaction for the Pro, considering that it's kind of not even doing what it's saying it's doing, and it also feels kind of like a neutered experience with the lack of a Blu-ray drive, the fact that a lot of these games, some of them won't be optimized to the extent that they could be optimized for to maintain parity with the previous console. It's that kind of half-ass shit that makes you wonder, why didn't you just come out with a new fucking console generation? Because it doesn't make any sense to give me this point .5 console that might at best last another year or two. You're just trying to extend the life of your console without actually making a new generation, but giving me elements of a new generation. It's like what Nintendo does with their handhelds. And obviously there are some, and granted, it's about the same thing, just on a lower scale because you're not spending as much. Now, everyone's biggest thing is that, oh, we get these new consoles with these new hardware. It's like, people are going to be like, I don't mind this point .5 generation because that means we get bigger and better games. But here's the thing about this generation in general. Most people would agree that this generation has been pretty fucking disappointing. Also, it's kind of funny to hear from Sony that they're coming out with this new console to promote all these new and bigger and better games, when Sony so far in the 3 years that it's been out hasn't really released that many first party titles. It's the funny thing, it's that kind of bias towards Sony that always pisses me off, is that Sony never gets called out on any of the shit they do, and even when they do, there's no real repercussions of it. The PSN infrastructure has been hacked multiple times. It's fine. Oh, they raised the price of PlayStation Plus. Oh, it's fine, because people will bitch about it and still pay for it. And now you have this PlayStation 4 bullshit, Pro bullshit, where it's not really that much of an upgrade. It's still pretty underpowered. Then you had all this minor shit like how I think was it Skyrim and Fallout 4. They don't even get the mods on PlayStation 4 for, I guess, Sony's policies and shit. Like, Sony for some reason has this weird bullshit armor that they can just kind of get away with anything in a lot of situations, and no one just fucking. And either people will say things, but it never has any repercussions. Like, people can talk as much shit about Nintendo as they want, but realistically, Nintendo's almost punished for almost every little thing they do. And if you don't think they are, then I don't understand where you've been these last few years. Sony, for some reason, aggravates me, and that's what kills me. It's like, you'll sit there and talk about, oh, well, look at all these new cool-looking games and these pro versions of games I'm looking forward to paying for. Yeah, but if it's anything like Sony's dealings with a lot of other consoles, that the shit doesn't do well, it'll barely be supported. And the fact that it's up to the discretion of the developer, they're obviously, the developers are going to do exactly what they do with every other console. They're going to wait until enough of them are bought before they start really pushing pro features. Because some of them are just ain't going to want to deal with it. And then eventually we're going to start running into situations where we're going to lose parity, or it feels like the pro version is being held back by the previous gen version. And considering the games this generation haven't been great, I mean, let's be real here. People shitted on Watch Dogs. People shitted on Destiny. I think Titanfall 2 seems to have a pretty good reception so far. People shitted on. I'm trying to think of other games. Evolve to ass. I mean, we got a few good games. You got Overwatch. You have your Titanfall 2. You have your Witcher 3. Metal Gear Solid 5 has its problems. Like, there's nothing. There hasn't been, like, this generation hasn't been stand out in a lot of ways. Part of it being is the lack of exclusives, and seeing which in the way these companies are headed. Whereas Nintendo seems to be heading more into the mixture of a home handheld market mixed with the console market. Sony wants to fucking bet on VR, and Xbox is betting on mixing its Xbox branding with the PC branding, which realistically just tells me that, hey, I guess I shouldn't buy a fucking Xbox console because I could just play everything on fucking PC. And that's what it's turning into. Sony doubling down on VR. Now, from what I've understood, it sold relatively well in its first few weeks. I don't know how well it's going to keep selling, because VR, to me, is just like what everyone calls everything else, fucking a gimmick. The difference is that this gimmick has very little potential to have a lot of depth to it and even have mass market appeal because it's kind of limited. And ironically enough, for a company that boasts how strong and powerful their consoles are, it's funny that their VR headset is like the lowest tier in terms of actual graphical output. And once again, if you want to get the best out of VR, what do you have to buy? A fucking Pro. It's like a damn chain reaction. And so the Pro comes out, and I'm just kind of I'm just looking at it, and I'm looking at the games, and I'm like, dude, most of the games that I even want to play on your console aren't even from you. And Sony used to make games pretty consistently, and then you have the ones that were supposed to come out that got fucking delayed. You got Last Guardian that was finally coming out, and that doesn't come out for like another month or so now. And then you have Horizon, which ironically enough is another situation. People like to shit on other companies for not having release dates on their games, and yet if anyone remembers, fucking Sony's E3 press conference this year, they had like 2 fucking release dates, one of which turned out to be a lie because Last Guardian got fucking delayed, the other one being Horizon Zero Dawn, and they showed teaser footage for a whole bunch of other fucking games. That's what kind of ticks me off, is that every time we get into this shit, Sony gets this weird level of bullshit armor where they can just get away with things. And then people sit there and wonder why there's some animosity towards certain fan bases in the community. Because sometimes it just feels like Sony can just do what they want. And in a lot of cases they can. It was the same issue I had back when the console was announced, and they kind of snuck in, oh, well, it's cheap, it's a low price console, and then they snuck in the whole, oh yeah, now you have to pay for online now. And now getting into this bullshit recently where we found out that Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty game, which I think is a mixture of it's the remaster of one and then like the new game, it's like 130 gigs. And you're wondering why, oh, well, look, they have a terabyte model. It almost brings up the question, why even do a 500 gigabyte model? Well, I'll tell you why you do a 500 gigabyte model, even though you have games that are pushing 60 and 70 gigabytes in terms of memory. You do a fucking 500 model for people who don't know any better and are trying to be cheap. If you're trying to be cheap and order a 500 gig, you punish people for early adopting, because in some situations, if I remember right, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that when the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out, I think the only version of the console you could get was a 500 gig model. That might be wrong, and I'm perfectly fine if it is wrong. I'm just saying, in which case, but you had games that are uncompressed. That's the funny thing, and I get it. You want uncompressed games to get the full graphical capabilities, but you're also hurting the gamer in terms of fucking storage space. It almost just makes me think that we just need cloud gaming from now on. Because when games are getting this fucking big and you guys aren't compressing them, what the fuck does it matter if I have a terabyte hard drive? If I'm playing, I downloaded 2 games and I've already taken down like a third, I've taken down like a tenth of my 1 terabyte hard drive. What kind of shit is that? What's the fucking point of even getting a game? What's the point of paying for a terabyte hard drive? And then on top of that, you never even start off with the full terabyte. It's like every other thing. They had to add in, it's usually taking off like 50 or 60 gigs for the fucking OS. Well, great. You got the OS for the online infrastructure that takes up, so you're never getting the full terabyte. Then you got games that are so uncompressed now that 2 of them will go ahead and kill out like a tenth of them. So at best, you might be able to play like 10 games. And then you bring up, it's like the industry is moving in a way that fucks the consumer, because essentially you're wondering, well, you can see the whole old 0.5 consoles. When you know the half of the reason why you do that because the games are getting so fucking stupid, because you can't hold that many games anymore. You're forcing me to install the games, which forces me to use hard drive space. And if I want to download the games, I'm using either just as much, if not more. And so it's almost as if we become more online focused, and you're punishing me accordingly, because you make me pay for online, you make me pay for extra hard drive space, you make games so fucking big and uncompressed that I can't even hold that many games. And then on top of everything else, it's just like, but you get to keep your saves, and you're like, yeah, but I still gotta delete the games. I gotta delete the $60 game I paid for. And then you wonder why people are moving to Steam. Because I don't think games are out, and granted, I'm not 100% sure, but at least with Steam, it's that whole, we're turning into PCs, but you're not giving me any of the benefits of PCs. Like with Steam, I could just play the game off of fucking Steam. I ain't gotta download the game. if I don't want to. And I'm going to just for better. But like, then it's like, oh, we have PlayStation Now to stream your old games. Well, of course you do, because downloading the bitches wouldn't make any sense either. Cause then I think, what was it, Sony? I think it's Sony's console that made it where you couldn't even fucking take the hard drive out and switch the bitch out. Like, you had to use like their special proprietary fucking hard drive. And I'm like, well, ain't that a bitch? What is this shit? And these are when, see, that's the issue. We're going in a direction that's gonna go into a crash. People like to act like there's not. There's too many stupid little things that are fucking up all over the place. Where, like, just to use Sony as an example, we're getting less exclusives from Sony, except for the obvious Japanese games and the few first-party games that come out, which seems to be rare as fuck nowadays. The games are getting bigger. The file sizes are getting bigger. We're getting more consoles. We're getting more iterations of the same console branding in the generation. So instead of the 1 or 2 versions of the PlayStation 3 we got, well, I think it was 3. It was the fat version, and then there was the slim, and then there was like the cheap looking ass slim. Instead of getting those 3, that didn't really seem to make that much of a difference. Now we're getting like the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 Slim, the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm pretty sure eventually we'll get the PlayStation 4 Pro Slim bullshit. That's what's happening. And it's like, dude, you're and then and if you want that PlayStation VR, you gotta buy the VR. Then you gotta buy the fucking Move controllers. Then you gotta buy the fucking camera. It's like, you want me to dedicate so much money. Oh, and remember, buy our Sony TV to play your new 4K games on our fucking 4K system that doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray player, but you have HDR, so that's a thing that you could just buy on the fucking Slim. And it's just kind of like, dude, this is like the PlayStation 4 Pro to me, and the Scorpio by comparison is gonna be the same fucking issue. You're gonna go further into the generation, and things are just gonna become more and more bullshit to the point in which you're just like, you know what, fuck it, I don't want to do this shit anymore. It kills interest in gaming because of it. Because it's like I was looking at PlayStation 4 the other day. I bought a PlayStation 3 when the Slim came out in 2010, which would, and going by my own logic, I would end up getting a 4 Pro, if not Slim, this holiday. And then I'm just like, I don't even want to fucking pay for that shit. I don't want to pay for it because there's so much other BS that comes with that. There's so much other dumb shit that comes with that. Because if I want to play half of those games online, I have to pay for the online service, which I don't want to fucking do. And some people are like, well, why not? I'm like, because you shouldn't have to pay for online for a service that already comes. You can't offer online gaming as a service when it's locked out to you. You still can't play your games online unless you pay for it. It's like you're adding in all these small little charges. Do you want backwards compatibility? You got to pay for it. Now, obviously, Xbox One has been better with that, with the whole, we're casually adding games to our catalog and you can do it that way, which is true. That is if you're gonna do it, at least add in the feature. Although it brings up the question, why wasn't that feature there at launch? Also, it brings up the question, why the fuck is that such a big deal all of a sudden? When, if you remember, when those 2 consoles were coming out, nobody gave a fuck about backwards compatibility. No one gave a fuck. All of a sudden, it's a big deal now. You know why? You know, part of the reason is because the games haven't been good. A lot of the games this generation have not been good. They've been either mediocre as fuck or okay, and you'll get like the 2 or 3 games in a year that are like really fucking good, and everything else is just like, well, we can just throw this bitch away. And this is the type of shit that just makes you really disillusioned with the gaming industry. Because I'm like, man, can we just crash and reset this bitch? Because this is getting stupid. This is getting stupid. And that's one of the reasons why I like when different companies try different tactics. Xboxes, even though it's not necessarily a good tactic for their console brand, it'll at least keep their name relevant and give them more of an edge. Because I'm more willing to pay for, because look, at least putting your games on a platform that I do play on, which would be PC, allows me to still play your fucking games. Now, obviously, you still got it under a fucking paywall, because you have to pay, you have to get an Xbox Live account to buy the fucking game, which I don't want to do because I have no intention of doing it. It's one of the reasons why I haven't bought some of those games yet, is because they're a lot behind the Microsoft bullshit. instead of giving me the free option with Steam and just letting me buy it off of Steam, so I don't feel like I'm being cheated. But you know, that's all up to the discretion of the developers and their exclusive deals. It's just a beautiful situation. But at least that is smarter and more progressive. Even Nintendo Switch, the Switch situation seems like a smarter idea than doubling on VR, which is at best a gimmick that most people are going to get tired of. And it's one of those things, just like the Vita, where it could be a cool piece of hardware and like barely be supported. And considering Sony has never had a good track record with supporting unique and inventive ideas, why do you think the Move died? The Move is being revived through the VR because the Move was a good piece of technology. I don't think anyone doubted the Move was a good piece of technology. Sony just doesn't have the balls or the consistency to keep up support for that shit. So it just kind of falls to the wayside and you're just kind of like, oh, that was a fucking thing. And that's actually my disillusionment with this generation in general. It's like, you kind of want, half of the reason for the 0.5 consoles at this point is because it's just been so fucking boring. It's been so boring and mediocre with the consoles we do have. Like, people who have PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, people are just kind of like, I like the console and I play games on it, but like no one really talks about anything else. And half of the arguments is about teraflops and fucking pros and Scorpios and shit and VR and all this other dumb shit. And you're just kind of like, I remember when y'all used to talk about games, and then I realized, oh, well, that's because neither of your consoles have any exclusive games that are worth talking about. Sony does, but they don't come out until like another month. Xbox, what the fuck is exclusive? Well, I think Gears. Is that it? Gears? Because Titanfall, I know, is split up again. What is... Actually, you know what? For the fuck of this and for the middle of the video, let's do this for a second. Let's do this. Xbox One exclusive games 2016. For the fuck of it. Because I'm curious to see what is coming out. Oh, why do you do this? I just wanted a list. And yes, I am going to do this right now because I'm just curious what the list would be right now. Because I don't think it's much. I think it's like Forza, Gears. Because Halo War doesn't come out until next year. Cuphead isn't next year. Crackdown is next year. Sea of Thieves is next year. Scalebound is next year. State of Decay is next year. Fucking Below is next year. There's like nothing coming out this year. Let's just go to GameStop for the fuck of it. Is there any like, what's exclusive to the fucking Xbox One right now? Just for like these next 2 months. There's like a few games for next year, but that's about it. And you're just kind of like, man, can we just get some fucking games? But then again, it seems like exclusive seems to fluctuate whether people think that's worth paying for or not. Let's look. That's release date. I'm gonna jump from all the 2017 stuff and try to get to the 2016 stuff, which shouldn't take me too long actually. Because there are some games that are coming out, there just aren't many. Okay, so we got... Wait, is Halo Wars 2 already out? No, it's not. Okay, no, it's not. Dead Rising 4 comes out, but I don't think that's exclusive, is it? It might be. Or I might be lying. I don't even fucking know, dude. It's just been a fucking depressing ass generation, and with all this mid-tier bullshit, there's just nothing interesting coming out. So I don't know. It's kind of more of just a complaint video of the mediocrity that's been going on, and how I'm curious. I don't even think the Pro's gonna sell that well. But then again, considering how well the VR is selling, the Pro probably will stand a decent chance. But you know, why has it come down to this in the first place is probably the main problem I have. So I don't know. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Patreon, Twitter, Facebook are all down there. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game. Play to win. And I will catch you guys later. Peace out.